Hey everyone, this is Suzanne here from the Marks Group. I am going to be teaching or leading the class in Zoho Books.
Hey everyone,
overview.
This is Suzanne here from the Marks Group.
Turn off that feedback. One of these days I'll learn. So I'm going to be going over Zoho Books today. So a little departure from our typical CRM classes. We're actually going to be looking at a different Zoho application today, Zoho Books, which is their accounting software platform. So we're going to be looking at their dashboard. We're going to be looking at items, banking, sales, purchases, invoices, and time tracking. We're going to be looking through all of that in Zoho Books. Okay, so I am going to start a recording and we will switch over to the screen and basically look through the application and get a feel for how it's laid out and how we would use it and move on from there. So I'm going to go ahead and start recording. Okay. So hello again, this is Suzanne from the Marks Group, and as I just said, we're going to be reviewing, it's a little departure from our typical CRM overviews. We're going to be looking at Zoho Books, which is their accounting software. So we will go ahead and get started. I do just want to review a couple things. There is a chat window to the right of your screen. And if this is the way we communicate. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use that chat window to have your questions addressed. Okay, I think that's, oh, and I'm sorry, one of these days I'm going to get this down. One other little housekeeping reminder is there is a little gear wheel towards the bottom right corner of your screen. So as you're watching, and if there's any issues with the video, things look choppy, you can change the resolution and different settings in that gear wheel to try to get your stream to smooth out. So with, I think that's it for the housekeeping. I'm going to go ahead and start into our books, Zoho Books overview. All right. So we're going to our share. I'm going to go into our Zoho 1. Okay. So what we're looking at is the Zoho 1 home panel. And you see there's all these different applications. And the one we're going to be talking about today is Zoho Books. So I'm going to pop into that. Okay. So this is a big empty shell because this is the books version that's in our accounting, or I'm sorry, in our training platform, and we really haven't populated all too much. But that shouldn't be too much of a detriment on our review. And as we use it more and more, we'll get it populated, and some of the data will look a little more informative. Okay, so we are in Zoho Books. And we're looking at the dashboard right now. So there's, you know, some typical things, looking at what our receivables are, what our payables are, looking at a cash flow graph, income and expenses graph. So this is all standard dashboard components that come out of the box with Zoho Books. So it's just, again, it's all standard. And when there's data in there, it makes a lot more sense. So that's our quick overview of our dashboard. So we also track customers or contacts in here. And I also want to mention Zoho Books is very QuickBooks-like. So you'll see some similarities as we go through Zoho Books and QuickBooks Online, or even QuickBooks Desktop. So I'm just going to walk down this nav panel and talk through some of the modules or features within Zoho Books. So we have contacts. Contacts are basically like your customers in QuickBooks. And if you're a Zoho, frequent Zoho user, then you know that Zoho is made up of a suite of business support applications and that a lot of them integrate together. So when you first initialize your Zoho Books software package or your account, you can sync that with CRM, and then all of your accounts and contacts within CRM will sync up into Zoho Books. So if I click on contacts, right now it's set to vendors, I'm going to say all contacts. And these are all the contacts that are currently in your in our training CRM platform. So you'll see there's just a bunch of kind of garbagey data in here as we use it to demonstrate various features. So we already have a whole bunch of contacts in our books account because we've integrated that with CRM. So and you can see that each contact shows and basically these are my all contacts. I can look at just the customers, and all the customers are going to have a summary of their receivables and their unused credits. So it's kind of like that customer list in QuickBooks where you can see the rolled up total of what's outstanding and any credits that they have. Okay, so that's our list, and up here is our view. So we already saw that I changed that a couple times. We can look at all contacts, we can look at customers, vendors, CRM customers, CRM vendors, and then all these other different views. And just like CRM, we can create custom views up in Books to look at a list of records that meet the criteria that we've defined for the view. Okay, so there's nothing hugely new there. It's list of contacts. We do have those roll up receivables and unused credits. Okay, so let's take a look. Moving down the list here, we're going to look at items. And again, it's kind of similar to QuickBooks that you have your items and they have information associated with them. So I'm going to pop into items. And again, these are a lot of demo items. But we're going to look at, you can create a new item by clicking the button, or you can edit an existing item. So I can just hit new and define my item. I can say whether it's a good or a service, give it a name, identify the unit. Very similar to adding an item in QuickBooks. And it also links up with the CRM products module. So with that CRM integration between Books and CRM, when we set up that integration, we tag accounts and contacts to contacts, and we tag and we tag products to products and vendors to vendors. So there's more than one link to the integration between CRM and Books. We link contacts, we link vendors, and we link products. Okay, so we can define a new one right up here in items, and we have the sync set up so that if we do define it up here in Books, it'll get pushed down as a product in CRM. And likewise, if we create a new product in CRM, it'll get pushed up to Books as an item. So we created the widget product in CRM, and it got pushed up to Zoho Books. Excuse me. And here's what it looks like. So it has some an overview. You can see any transactions, which aren't adjustments or history. Let's go back to the overview and click edit. And here it looks very similar to that blank form that I just opened up for adding a new item. So in our example, this is a product. It's a good versus a service, a tangible item. We've given it the name of widget. It has a unit of each, and I've created some information in here. So the rate is it's 10 per when we're selling it and 5 per when we're purchasing. So so you can see, again, it's very similar to QuickBooks. I'm going to be saying that a lot as we go through this hour. You assign an account. There's a description for selling and purchasing. And then there's inventory tracking that you can set up. So you can elect to track inventory, define what account it's associated with, what our opening stock is, and what the rate per unit is for setting up inventory. So that's the layout of an item record. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then we also have price lists up here. So I have an example in there, but we're going to hit new price list. And it's kind of similar to discounts in QuickBooks, and it's not as robust as price books in CRM, but it's basically a way of just defining either in a sales or a purchase, whether you're going to be marking the rate up or down based on a percentage. Excuse me. So I can, so actually I'm going to open this one. So I've just given this a name, demo price is a discount. I've said that it's in sales and it's a markdown and it's 10%. And we have some rounding numbers, and then you can put some description in here. But it's like just kind of a flat defining a discount that you can store and apply. Okay. All right, so that's all I have on looking at the items. There are also inventory adjustments. So if you've ever run a business where you've got to keep track of a bunch of parts, invariably your system gets out of whack with reality, and then you need to make adjustments. So if you have your inventory says you have 100 parts and you do an actual count and you only have 98 parts, then you do an inventory adjustment to subtract out those missing parts. So you click adjustment. Again, you have reason, and the example that I just gave is an inventory reevaluation. You can also subtract things out of inventory if they're stolen or they're damaged or they're written off or whatever. So that's an inventory adjustment. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I think we've done a pretty good overview of the standard dashboards, contacts, and how they sync with CRM, and items, how they sync with CRM products as well. Okay, moving along down the form, we've got banking. So I've got, when you create a Zoho Books account, you have your standard 2 accounts, petty cash and undeposited funds that businesses will use. But typically here you want to add your credit cards and your bank accounts. So for our training account, we don't have a bank account, but I do have one in my accounts. I want to bring that up and just show you what that looks like. Give me a minute. I meant to have this up before I started class. So here's an actual account where we've got our petty cash and undeposited funds, but we also have a PayPal account and a checking account at the bank. So when I create the banking account, so I can set that account up, and I can also set up feeds. So I can set that up under the gear wheel. So once I create the bank, I can refresh feeds or update credentials, and so either one of those. So when I open the bank record, I click the gear wheel and I can do update credentials to add in the login credentials for your online banking. And what that does is that creates a linkage between this banking account that you've just created and your online banking, so that you can set up feeds, what they call feeds, so that all transactions that happen in your bank automatically get pushed into your Zoho Books account. So when it comes time to reconcile your bank account, you can do that right in here within Books. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to sync now. This actually should be syncing automatically, so I'm not sure why it's not. So I'm going to set that up. It's going to take a little bit to sync because it's retrieving a couple weeks worth. And then we're going to revisit that once that finishes, and then I'll show you how you're matching transactions, and then you can reconcile your account. Okay, so that's banking. And you can also, again, add, like we saw, I had PayPal in there. You can add a credit card as well, and manage, keep track of all the transactions related to that bank or credit card or PayPal, and match them to your income and expenses that we're going to hit when we go to sales and purchases, and then do reconciling. Okay. So that's banking. And again, we're going to circle back around to banking when we get those transactions in. Okay, moving along, we're going to go into sales. So sales consists of your estimates, which again, it's just being able to send an estimate to a customer. You can also set up retainer invoices. So we can set up a retainer invoice where, well, let's go ahead and pop into that. I'm going to create a new retainer invoice. So I'm going to select my customer. I'm just going to pick Bill's Boats up here, first one. Good. And then I can describe what this retainer invoice is about. So this is advanced payment for project X. Okay, and we can say how much that's for. So let's say we're going to get $1,000 from Bill up front. And we're going to do, oh, that's right. Actually, sorry. I had this set up, not bills, but books, because I have that. Nope. I thought I had one of these customers. My apologies. I thought I had a customer set up with an email address, with my email address, so that we could see that come in. Shoot, bear with me for just a sec. Actually, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to just cancel out of this. My apologies. I'm going to go up to one of our customers. So let's just pick Bill's Boats because he's first. And I'm going to change that email address to my email address. Okay. All right. So going back into sales, we're going to set up a retainer invoice. So we're going to pick Bill's Boats again. Get our description. And it's $1,000. Okay, and then there's information here where you can put in notes and terms and conditions as well, if you want to do that. And we're going to click Save and Send. Oh, that's what I did before. That's right. I just updated it in here. Okay. So then it pops up your email. So this is this message here is a template that you can modify, and it also gets attached as a PDF, and that's also a template that can be modified. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit send. Okay. Now, so this is what it looks like. And this is just the standard template. I haven't done any modifications. So, it has, if you have a company logo in your books account, it'll put that on there. It's, again, it's just going to pull from the record, and this is the standard. So if you wanted to do things like, for example, look at the way the address is. So it's the street, and then the city, and then the zip code, and then the state. So you could go into the template and change that to make it more more standard to what we typically do. Okay, so so now I can record a payment against this. So let's say he's paid, and so I just click the record receive payment, and I'm going to put that in petty cash for right now, because we obviously, if he paid me and I deposited into a bank, actually, you know what, I'm going to put it in undeposited funds. So that's money I'm holding on to that I haven't yet gotten to put in the bank. So I'm going to go ahead and click record payment. And there we are. So now I have created a retainer invoice. I've sent the retainer invoice to the customer, and he's paid me, and I have recorded that payment. So now when I go back up to my banking, I see in petty cash or in deposited funds, there's that $1,000 that I just paid, or that I just recorded. Okay. So that's the concept of a retainer invoice. That's the way you would record any monies that are paid in advance. So now I'm going to come back to sales order, but I want to pop to invoice. So now if I create an invoice for Bill's Boats, and I'm going to say he's buying some widgets. And notice here as I'm creating the invoice, so I clicked, new invoice. I selected Bill's Boats as the customer name. A lot of this stuff auto-populates as far as invoice date. You can change that if it's not right. You can change the salesperson as well. We have 2 in our training system. So if you're the one entering it in, if your accountant is entering in this information, they can choose which salesperson this invoice gets attributed to, which is especially important if you're doing commissions. And when I choose widget, because widget is an inventory item that I've set up and I'm tracking stock, it's going to tell me how many I have right in here, which is a nice little feature. So I can say that $10. So let's say I'm gonna buy 50. Okay. So he's giving me an order for 50. So I just change that quantity. The rate fills, and the amount gets auto-calculated. I can, so here's when we did that price list, and I did a sample price list already and have added the widget product to that price list. So now I can apply that price list, and that automatically gives him a discount of 10%. So we see the rate go from 10 to 9. So it's a little bit different. Again, the difference between a price list and a discount. So a price list is you're just setting a different price for them. You're not giving them a discount. Where a discount would be like, if I'm saying, all right, I'll give you a 10% discount on this, then I would just put that in here as 10%. Okay, so that's kind of a subtle distinction between those two. Okay, so that's how I can apply a price list. It comes up right above the product list. Okay, so I have, and then I can add more items by clicking the add another line, but it's very similar in nature to the invoice in CRM, where the totals are automatically calculated. You can put in customer notes, terms and conditions, all of that. And then I can click save and send. So now, actually, let me cancel that, because I already have a draft, or I already have a retainer for this customer. I wouldn't necessarily want to send him this invoice, right? Because I've already gotten his money. So what I want to do, instead of clicking save and send, is I should have clicked just save. And by canceling the send, that's what happened. And now I have this draft invoice that's here. And notice this yellow section. And that's linking the fact that I've got a retainer invoice for this customer. So I can just apply the retainer by clicking that button. So I just click apply now. And I'm going to apply, oops, it's 450. So I'm going to apply 450 to this and apply the retainer. Okay, so now my invoice is marked as paid, And if we look at my retainer, it's partially drawn. Okay. All right, so that's retainer invoices and invoices and how that relates. We also saw when I did the retainer that I can do a payment right from the invoice, but I can also then I can come in here and look at my payments received, and I can bank a payment right from here. So if I select a customer, notice it's saying there's no invoices that can be applied for this payment. So if I had unpaid invoices, then and this is the way you would enter a payment if say you had 3 unpaid invoices. So instead of just going to each invoice and the customer gave you a payment that covers all 3 of those invoices, then the way you would enter that is to come and say payment received and then associate it with those 3 invoices. If it's a 1-for-1, then you can just open the invoice and record a payment right from the invoice. Okay, so there's that connection between excuse me, payments and invoices. Okay. Just want to see if there's anything else. So, you can also do sales orders within here, estimates and sales orders, similar to CRM, where CRM has quotes and sales orders and invoices. You can also set up recurring invoices. So within Books, let's say you have, this would be good for if you have a subscription that renews every month, or, just any kind of ongoing billing that's the same. You can set it up as a recurring invoice. So again, we select our customer, and I can set up this, I want to do this profile name. So let's say this is the Zoho subscription. Okay, and then I say that this is, if they're paying monthly or every year, and I set that up as a year, and when it starts, when it ends, or I could choose that it never expires. So, and then when the subscription does end, when they contact me to say, stop, I don't want to do this anymore, then we can come in here and put the date when that ends, so that'll stop creating the invoices. And then basically, just like we did with the other ones, select what you're invoicing them for. Let's see, it's Zoho 1. What that rate is, so that's, so again, we just go ahead and set that up and then click save. And then this will actually kick out the invoice every month for that recurring invoice. And then again, there's also credit notes, similar to QuickBooks, where if a customer overpays, you can extend them a credit and then refund that credit, or just keep that credit on account and apply that credit to an invoice. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to go over with sales. And again, if there's any questions, you want to take a deeper dive into anything that I'm doing, please feel free to enter a question into the chat window. Okay, so that's sales, and again, that's invoices. There's retainer invoices, recurring invoices, and you can also do estimates and sales orders within that. All right, let's take a look at purchases. So sales obviously is all your income, all the money coming in. Purchases is the money going out. So I'm going to cancel this. So purchases is the money going out. So we can have expenses. We can have recurring expenses, purchase orders, bills, payments made. So those are payments, that's money going out, versus this payments, which is the money coming in, payments received. We can set up recurring bills, and then we can also have vendor credits. So let's look at an expense. And I have an example in here of an air travel expense. So one of the things with interesting little linkages between purchases and sales is that a lot of times we have pass-through expenses that are, expenses that we incur as the cost of doing business that we pass along to our customers. So here's an example of an expense that I've created as it's an air travel expense. Let me just open that up for editing. So the date, put in the date, the expense account is air travel. The amount was 300, and I'm actually going to change that to undeposited funds. So you pick the account of how this expense was paid. So if you put it on a credit card, or if you put it on your debit card, you would choose that credit card account or that bank account. So we're just going to use undeposited funds for this. You can put in the airline as a vendor if you choose. It's not required. But down here is where I can attach it to a customer. So I can associate a vendor, and then down here I can associate it with a customer. So I'm going to choose Bill's Boats, since that's what we've been using. And then I can say that that's billable just by checking that checkbox. Notice, because I have a CRM integration, that I could also attach this to a potential in my CRM, or a deal record in my CRM, and I also have projects, so I could also attach it to a project, but I don't have any defined. So you can link this particular expense to other records outside of books, because we have those applications integrated. Okay, so I'm just going to say that that's so basically this is how I'm linking it to this customer, is I'm choosing the customer and I'm saying it's billable, and I save it. Okay, so that's my expense. And then I can also and actually I want to show you one more thing. So that's so let's open new. And so I just wanted to show this top menu as well. So again, I just click new. I can record an expense. I can record car mileages, or I can import expenses. So if you have your expenses already set up in a spreadsheet, that's what the bulk add is. Actually, it's my apologies. It's not an import. It's just a bunch of rows that you can bulk add. There is an import feature as well. So let's come back to, so I can add my one individual form, or I can add a bunch in one fell swoop with that spreadsheet that we saw. Okay, so we pretty much saw this. So again, we have our vendor area, our customer area. So let's look at the mileage. There is, so you can record mileage, car mileage, which is, oops, we don't have any employees in here. So I would choose, I can attach that to an employee. It's not required. I can either calculate the mileage by just entering in the mileage, or I can do odometer reading. So I can do start and end reading. But if I just say they drove 100 miles on company business, the rate per mile is in here. I think that's just the US standard reimbursement, federal government reimbursement. I can change that by clicking change, and I can change the rate there. But by entering my miles, it's just going to automatically calculate the amount. And then I can say it's paid through employee reimbursements. Okay. And again, with mileage, I can pass that on to a customer. So I can say that that's billable to Bill's Boats, and save. Okay. So that's expenses. I can set up recurring expenses. So if there's, a certain expense that, like a utility bill or something like that you pay every month, you can set that up as a recurring expense. And it's pretty similar to what we just saw in recurring invoice, where you give it a name, that you identify the repeat. Just checking our time. We're doing good. Identify the repeat, select the account. And again, you can attach that to a vendor, and you can also attach that to a customer. Purchase orders. I'm gonna just open a new one. So I can, again, like I just have 2 vendors in this account, but I would pick my vendor, which is a required field, give it a purchase order number, and then down here in my line items, identify what I'm buying. So notice that, I have a bunch of items in my item list, but the only item that's available to me in this list is the widget. And the reason for that is that the widget is the only one set up with a vendor. So when I choose my vendor, the only items that I'm going to see down here are the items associated with that vendor that I've selected, which is actually really nice. You don't have to search through a whole big list of items. Okay, and I can say, then I say the quantity that I want to buy. I want to buy 100, $5 each. That automatically calculates. And again, there are terms and conditions notes. I could upload a file associated with this as well, and then I can determine whether I want to deliver this to the organization or to the customer. So if it's delivered, it's going to come directly to me, or if I'm ordering this on behalf of a customer, I choose the customer. Okay. Again, here's the template. It's the standard template. I can click this button and edit that. That's the only one. So, but if I've created other templates, I can choose which one at this point. And then I can save and send. Here's where I put my email in. Okay, and then the purchase order, again, the purchase order gets attached. This email is a template as well that can be updated. The purchase order gets attached as a PDF, and I send. Okay, so now I can convert this to a bill. And I would put the bill number in. And that bill number is basically the number that comes on the bill when you receive it. So we're just going to say 1001, 10,001. Put the information in. All of this stuff is fine, and say save as open. And then I can record a payment and say that I've paid it. So it's all, you know, it flows very nicely, I think, and it's pretty intuitive. You can see I have one that's overdue. So then we go ahead and record a payment, and I can say I made that payment, and I'm going to pay that through my undeposited funds, and save. Okay, which kind of bopped us right down into bills. So I don't have to, I can create a bill from a purchase order, but I can also just enter a bill indirectly. So bills don't have to have purchase orders. I can just click new bill and create a bill straight from a form. Okay, payments made. We're going to see, this is your money out. So this is the payment that I registered directly through that bill. But I can also do the same thing here. Again, if I have a couple outstanding bills with a customer, I can say new payment, or I'm sorry, with a vendor, and notice this one pops up and is showing me that I have this outstanding. So I can say pay in full and just click on that and say that I'm paying $500. I think I'm out of money now in my undeposited funds, which is never a good situation to be in. But basically, so this is what it looks like when you have open purchase orders, or I'm sorry, open bills when you come in to make a payment to a vendor. So again, if I had multiple bills, I could connect that single payment to multiple bills by just clicking pay in full, pay in full, pay in full. And click all those. Save, and so now I have those two payments. Okay, I can also set up a recurring bill. So the difference between recurring expense and recurring bill, they're kind of they're kind of similar. But if you're actually getting a bill from a vendor, then you would want to set that up as a recurring bill versus if it's just something that's not really attached to a vendor per se, then you can set that up as a recurring expense. best practice really is to set it up as a bill, as a recurring bill. Okay, and then vendor credits, same kind of concept as customer credits. If you've overpaid a vendor, you can then book that as a credit and then apply that to any bills that come in after that. Okay. Okay, so let me just make sure I've covered everything that I wanted to do. Okay. Okay, now I want to come back up to sales, and in my invoices, and I want to show, oops, actually I'm going to do a new invoice for Bill's Boats. And because I created some expenses that I identified as billable to bill, I get this highlighted yellow area that's showing me I have 2 unbilled expenses, and I can add them by just clicking on that link and add them to my invoice. So there are also situations where sometimes you have an expense with a vendor and they charge you a certain amount of money, and then when you're charging the customer, you're tacking on a commission or, you know, whatever that is. So if so for example, not a great one here, but so say, you know, this air travel expense, I'm going to tack on another $10 or, you know, whatever as an additional fee to the customer for my time and effort in getting that airline ticket. Not a great example, but you get the idea. If, again, if you're tacking on any kind of additional fee and then charging that to the customer, all you do is change the rate right here. So it was an expense to you at $300. It's billable to the customer at $310. So when I add that into the invoice, I just change that rate. And then the customer gets billed $310 and I'm only paying the airline $300. Okay. So it's actually a better example is if you work with subcontractors. So if your subcontractor has charged you $100 to do something and you're passing that along to the client, but you're adding your commission or your fee, then you can up that as well. That's probably a better example. Okay, so by putting bills and expenses in billable to the customer, then when I come to invoice the customer, I can just add those with a click of a button to my invoice. Okay, and I'm just going to save this as draft. And then I can also, I added those expenses, but I could also add in add in more line items as well. Okay, so I just wanted to show that connection. Okay, so that's pretty much wraps up our sales and purchases, which is, again, is basically your income and expenses and tracking all of that. Moving down, and we're kind of getting a little low on time, so I'm going to kind of whip through this a little bit faster. But Books also has a time tracking feature. So you can actually set up projects in Books that have tasks associated with them. So I can create a project. I'm just going to call this demo project. And it's, again, going to be for Bill. He's a good customer. And so I select my customer, and then I can select my billing method. I have these 4 choices. I can do fixed costs based on project hours, task hours, or staff hours. So we're going to do this as hours. And I'm going to put what the rate per hour is. And then I can add a budget. So by clicking that button, I can say that I'm going to add a budget, and then I can choose a budget type out of these 4 selections. And I'm going to choose total budget hours. And let's say I've got 100 hours budgeted for this project. Okay. So then down here, I can add tasks. So I can set this up as data model design as a Zoho CRM implementation project. So data module design, I put some description, it's billable. Then I add data model implementation, add task. I'm just going to do 3 here, and then data migration. Okay, and I can choose to add these to the watch list on my dashboard as well. And I click save. Okay, so now I have my project. I've got some dashboard here, and I have my 3 tasks that I've got. Okay, and the only user that's assigned to this is the one user. So I could add more users and then allocate tasks across the different users. So now, as the users can actually log their time against those tasks. Hold on. Oops, cancel. And there's also a little built-in timer as well. So I can click start, and then I can work on my task. It's not going to be too exciting when I click stop. It's going to be a couple seconds. But I can work on my task, and let a little time go by. Click stop. Yeah, I think it's hours and minutes. So it didn't even make it to a minute. But so you can use the built-in timer to log your time, or just automatically log time against a task. So then I can just say, like, I spent 3 hours and 30 minutes. Save. Okay. So the nice thing about this is so your users can just, if there's tasks and these are all billable to the customer, they can come in, they can log their time that they did on the certain task, add more descriptive information. And then again, when I come to invoices and I create a new invoice for Bill's Boats, I'm going to see I have one unbilled project. So I can click on that. And then here are all my choices for adding that in there. So I can say, show the project name, the project description, and I want to do all unbilled expenses associated with the project and all bills associated with the project. So you can, when you log bills and expenses, you can also tag them to a project as well, as opposed to a customer. Excuse me. You can choose to show all the timesheet entries individually, group by task, group by user, task and user, or do a single line for the project. So that's how you can show it on the invoice. So if I do show all timesheet entries individually, and then for the item name, I can say the task name. And for the description, I want to show the task description. Okay, so those are different ways that you can add those tasks onto an invoice to your customer. Say add. And then, of course, it's not very exciting because I didn't put descriptions in there. But so here's data model design. There's the task name. And then, it would be a little more descriptive. And then data migration. And the description would have been pulled in if there was one. So again, that first one, because I did the timer, no time came in. And then the second one, I manually entered the time and it came in. So say we can, and it's actually, I don't know if it'll let me do that. Okay. So it's a really nice little feature for you to, again, if you have staff that's working on different things, this is a way you can keep track of all their hours and bill to the customer quite easily. Okay, and then I can hit save and send, but I'm just going to save as draft. Okay. So that's the time tracking feature. And then there's a whole accountant piece. So it is, again, QuickBooks full up accounting software. So I can do journals, I can make currency adjustments, I can look at my chart of accounts, and I can also set up transaction locking. So if once I've reconciled, I can set transaction locking for up to the point that I've reconciled, so that people can't go in and change things after I have reconciled. And then there's a whole bunch of reports. So there are all these standard reports that you can look through. And then you can also use Zoho Reports, which is this advanced analytics up here, and pull your books data into advanced analytics to create custom reports. You can't really create a custom report right within books. You can use all the standards, but to create a custom, you would have to go through Zoho Reports. Okay. Okay, and we're just about out of time. So that was a whirlwind course on Zoho Books. That's kind of an overview. We might be introducing some more deeper dives into Zoho Books in the future to get a little more in depth and maybe show some, some more detailed examples. But I think that's, a good introduction to Zoho Books. It gets you, now you've kind of seen all the pieces. There's a ton more. There's a whole settings area where you can, actually I can pop into that really quickly. So here's the settings. This is where you change all your templates and your email templates, set up, there's automation built into here as well, integrations, you can add users, set up your currencies, set up taxes. So there's a lot more to it than we had time for in the class. But again, we're going to be looking at expanding our curriculum to some of these other Zoho applications, and not only including overviews, but then maybe creating some deeper dives like we did for CRM. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so just to recap, which I think I just did, but I'm going to recap again. So we basically just kind of walked through our navigation panel down the side of books. We looked at our dashboard, we looked at contacts, we looked at our list of items, we talked about banking. I did not come back to that other one. So that's what I wanted to show you here. So with bank feeds, sorry, I'm going to divert and come back into here because I just realized when I hit banking that I didn't circle back around. So when we have a bank account synced with our online banking, we get these feeds in. So here's all the transactions straight from my bank, and I can match them to what I've recorded. This is the right one. What I've recorded in my book. So here I've sent an invoice out to this customer, and now they've paid me. The payment has hit my bank, and because it's a direct deposit payment, and I can match it to that invoice. So now that bank transaction is recorded as a payment in my Zoho Books, and it's also matched within my banking. So when I go to reconcile, everything's already matched up. I don't have to go through look at the two windows and click check boxes to say, yes, I see that in my bank, I see that in my bank. It's already matched up by going through this. So reconciliation, reconciling your bank is, it should always be 0 when you go to do it, if you're keeping up with your feeds and matching them into your books. Okay, so sorry. So back to our recap. So again, we looked at banking and how, that you can add credit cards and bank accounts and have that all synchronized in with your books account. And then we have our income and expenses that they call sales and purchases, where sales is basically money in. So invoices, retainer invoices, recurring invoices, and purchases is money out, your expenses, your bills, your recurring bills, recurring expenses. And how we can make our expenses billable to our customers and easily pop them into invoices. So we did spend a lot of time on sales and purchases. And then broad brush overview of time tracking, where you can set up a project, create tasks, assign those tasks to your users. And then when your users log in to the Books account, you can set them up as timesheet users. And when they log in, they can go to click on timesheet, and they'll see their tasks, and they can log time against their tasks. And again, there's that nice little built-in timer feature too, because sometimes we don't always keep track of what time we started and stopped our tasks. Okay, so so that's what I have for you today on Zoho Books. I hope you found that informative and are ready to dive in and take it on. I know a lot of people out there use QuickBooks, and it's a hard it's a hard transition to change your accounting software. But if you're a Zoho, especially if you're a Zoho One user, Zoho Books is available to you. It's free. You're already paying for it in your subscription. So I would encourage you to play around with it, take a look at it, and see if it's something that you might want to transition to. And there are ways of getting all of your QuickBooks data and porting it into Zoho Books for the transition, and that's something that we can help you out with in a side project. Okay, so that's all I have today on Zoho Books, and I will see you next time tomorrow afternoon. We're going to actually be looking at Zoho Motivator, which is another Zoho application. All right, that's it for me. I am going to leave the Q&A up for just a few minutes to see if there are any remaining questions regarding what we went over in Zoho Books, so that I can answer them in real time. After the chat window closes, please feel free to send any follow-up questions to the email address that you see on the window, support@marksgrouplive.com. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye.